to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different than normal. Typically I sit down with a guest and we talk about various topics, whether it be jiu-jitsu, comic books, movies, action figures, whatever it may be that comes to mind. This time out, I actually had the opportunity to sit with 6 female grapplers, and we went over a few different questions to discuss their experiences as it relates to grappling and MMA for that matter. So what we're going to do is kind of transition from here and just straight into the questions, and I'll introduce each of the guests per session, and we'll go from there. So go ahead, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, so I have with me today Tiana Taylor. Tiana was a previous guest on the podcast with me, so welcome back, Tiana. Hello.
Thank you for having me back, Jake.
No problem. Thank you for joining me for this episode. That I'm pretty excited about it. So I got some questions here for you. I just kind of want to ask a couple things to get your experience, from your side of it. So when you started training early on, do you remember, can you think back to your first memory, just like your first thoughts, like even getting onto the mat or even after you're done?
My first thought, I think, was, what am I doing? To be honest. I remember feeling very self-conscious. I was by far the lowest level member in the class, and I was also very conscious of hurting anybody else. That's something that stuck with me, because I was a new person and I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I had to spar in my very first class. I was very conscious of hurting higher belts because they were obviously a lot better than me, and I didn't want to be the spazzy white belt who broke someone's bone in their first class. So yeah, I was quite self-conscious, but I was very intrigued as well.
Okay. And once you were all done, what was the feeling at the completion of class for you?
Confusion. I was like, I don't understand what happened there. It was quite an advanced class, my very first class, because everybody else was a much higher belt, and nothing stuck. I would say nothing stuck really for about 2 years, if I'm honest, but that's to do with me not training regularly enough initially. But yeah, nothing stuck. It was very, very complicated to me, and I'm the kind of person who used to stick with techniques for quite a while before I move on. So after the first class and after a few classes, I was just like, oh, is this a good idea? Am I ever going to be any good at this? And that lasted a very long time, actually, a very long time. But yeah, confusion is the word I would say for how I felt initially, because it was a collection of techniques, a collection of movements, but none of them stuck.
When you had your first competition,
yeah,
how did you feel going into that?
I was so excited, so excited. It's for someone who's quite good with language, I still struggle to convey verbally how I felt, because I had wanted to compete for so long before I actually was able to compete. So I had a lot of health issues, and I remember it being October 2017, and I was so excited. I slept like a baby the night before, and I remember my alarm going off on the Saturday morning. I was like, oh, I don't want to go to work. Oh no, I'm not going to work. I'm going to compete. This is amazing. I felt really good. I didn't really have high expectations, which was just as well because I got tapped in 1:15. But I think when I got to the venue and the girl who drove me there pointed out another white belt who, well, she had actually had a black belt in judo, so really she shouldn't have been competing because it was IBJJF rules. And I was like, oh my gosh, judo and me are not a good combination. So yeah, that's when I got a little bit nervous, but I absolutely loved it. The adrenaline, it was amazing. Even though I got tapped, I didn't care. I just loved it. And I was like, right, next one, please. It was great. I think my partner, who's my instructor, I think he was disappointed that I enjoyed it, because he had a very bad fear of me getting injured. And I think he was hoping I wouldn't enjoy competing, but I love competing. I live to compete.
Prior to any training,
Yeah.
had you ever had any kind of a physical altercation or a fight where you thought to yourself like, damn, dude, I wish I knew martial arts, or I wish I knew how to fight?
Yeah. Oh, there are two. Well, there's a few that stick in my mind, actually. I remember when I lived in Valencia, I was 20 and I was in a club and I was dancing with a group of girlfriends. And this guy started grinding up behind me, and the music was really loud. So I turned around and I gestured to him like, I'm cool, leave me alone kind of thing. And the next thing I know, I'm on the ground because he's pushed me to the floor. Now, at the time, I only weighed 100 pounds. I was 45 kilos. I was very, very, very small, very, very tiny. And this guy was absolutely huge. He was about 6'5". I don't know what he weighed, but he was massive compared to me. I used to be so tiny. And the next thing I know, I'm on the floor. And I stand up. And this massive guy is like raising his fist to punch me in the face. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to hit me. And I remember his eyes. I think he was on drugs because his eyes were like saucers. And because he was so tall and he raised his fist to hit me, I hit him first as hard as I could. Which probably in retrospect wasn't very hard because I was so small, but it dazed him a bit, and he got like reprimanded by security, and he says to me in Spanish, "You, me, outside now." And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening here? It was, this guy was huge and I was so small, and I was just like, he's actually going to punch me because I don't want to dance with him. That's a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit. And it was the whole, he got right up in my face and was like, "You, me, outside now." And it was incredibly scary, to be honest. That was scary. And yeah, that's one. The other one I didn't fare. I was bad in. I was in the UK. I was in Leeds, and I got in a altercation, should we say, with this girl. Well, if you can even call it that. She accused me of dancing with this guy that she liked, and to this day, I still don't know who the guy is. We were in a club, okay, and she goes for me. Oh, this sounds so bad. Okay, well, she goes for me. She lunges at me. So I restrained her by I just put my hand around her neck and held her up against the wall. And I didn't know how strong I was at the time, and she clearly didn't know how strong I was. And yeah, I had to restrain her from punching me. So, well, she's actually banned from at the time, well, after that, she got banned from all the clubs in 2 major northern cities in the UK because she got severe anger problems.
Oh. Okay. Well,
I'd
good on
like to
you.
stress I restrained her. I did not hit her. I restrained her. There just happened to be a wall there to support her, support me holding her up by the throat. That doesn't sound very good, does it? I sound like a terrible
It,
person.
it's no, you're fine. You're defending yourself.
I
It's
was
not,
defending
it's
myself.
not like you walked up to her like, "Hey, bitch," and just start choking her. It's like, "Oh my god!" Like,
That's what she was like. That's what she was like coming at me. And
see,
I was just like, what are you doing? So I thought, I can't be having this. But I generally diffuse arguments with language. I'm not I don't like it. I like jiu-jitsu because it's fighting in a very controlled environment. It's very, very controlled. Um, but street fights and weapons and things, not my bag at all.
as far as anyone new trying to get into jiu-jitsu specifically,
Mm.
as we're discussing, and we both train, what advice would you give any new grapplers, male or female for that matter, but new grapplers, period, coming in?
Not to compare yourself to other people in your gym. That's a massive one. Do not focus on stripes, belts, or any of that. Focus on having fun, focus on learning and enjoy it, because so many people want the blue belt, the purple belt, and then they say they wish they were white belts again because nothing's expected of you. So, well, not much is not as much is expected of you because you're new. So I think the comparison is the thief of joy, but also the thief of progress. If you start comparing yourself to other people who started around the same time, just because you're learning more slowly, it doesn't mean you're not progressing. And I think that's really, really important. I do learn very slowly. And I do not compare myself to other people, because if I did, I would have quit years ago. I really would have done, because um, people picked up techniques and concepts so much quicker than me, but I've stuck it out, and it's not who's good, it's who's left, really. So never give up. That's what I would say.
That's good advice. Thank you, Tiana. That was excellent. I do appreciate it. Look forward to talking with you again and have you on as a guest for another full episode, just you and I.
That
Thank
would be
you.
awesome. Thank you.
My guest for this segment is going to be UFC fighter Ashley Yoder. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for doing this. Basically, what's going on with this specific episode is, we're just trying to get a feel for fighters and grapplers and their experiences from the very beginning with, getting started, and, any advice that you may, have, for first time grapplers or first time MMA fighters for that matter, being in your position. Um, when you got started with martial arts, whether it be jiu-jitsu, or even taekwondo, anything of that nature, what was your first memory?
Um, Absolutely. I actually started it as MMA. I never been a single discipline. As I got into it, I started splitting the disciplines up, and of course, I have my black belt in jiu-jitsu now. But when I started, I was 20 years old, and I had never been introduced to martial arts before that. So I remember I just went home for Christmas for 2 weeks, and I actually passed the place, and it was like smaller than a room that I started in. It was carpeted, and it was just a little MMA gym in the middle of nowhere. It was the smallest town ever, and I got brought into there by one of my friends who saw that I had some anger issues and was like, "Hey, come in here and punch some stuff. You don't have to really explain anything." So that's how I started. My first memory was, I remember I sweat through like a whole shirt my first workout. And trust me, like I was a swimmer, I did track, like I was a cheerleader, but there was not a workout that was as tough as my first workout. They had us jumping over cones, doing burpees. I'm like, I was not ready for that kind of workout. And that wasn't even the beginning of like learning the MMA part. So yeah, I was MMA. A lot of people don't realize that I always say I'm learning on the job because, you know, you trying to pick up so many details on so many different disciplines is, you know, it's been a challenge in itself, but I think I'm handling it pretty well, and I enjoy learning. So it's probably the best part of the journey is, you know, getting able to kind of focus on certain things now instead of trying to just get a grasp on what I'm doing. So, yeah.
And it's funny thinking that because, you know, I saw that you had gotten promoted to black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I was like, oh, okay. So grappler right out the gate. And, you know, watching your fights, just watching you grapple was like, all right, okay. Like, she must have started off with jiu-jitsu and, you know, just went from there. I always think it's tougher when you start, and I don't know because I'm not a fighter. I always think that it may be tougher when you start with one discipline than you start learning others along the way. I think, at least.
You know, I don't know because I didn't start that way, but I do know that when I do talk to people, I always tell them it's always good to get fundamentals of each of the four main disciplines before you start MMA. But, you know, the thing is, because you're getting overloaded, it's really hard to get, you know, I tell people all the time, like, I love jiu-jitsu. I'm nowhere where I would want to be because I don't have the time to train jiu-jitsu. Like, I train jiu-jitsu a lot, but I also have to train wrestling a lot. I have to train boxing a lot. I have to train kickboxing a lot. So there's a lot of other things that I have to train a lot, and there's just not enough time in the day, and my body can only handle so much. So I only get to train jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 times a week. So, I mean, for my training schedule, that's really not a lot of just one discipline, you know?
True. Yeah. Again, being in MMA and especially at the, you know, top level, that, like, for me, you know, 3 days, it's like, oh wow, you know, that's a lot for me. Like, so, you know, they hear you say, hey, you know, 3-4 days, and that's not a lot, but then also couple it with the ideal that you are having to do, you know, wrestling, kickboxing, boxing, you know, you have to fill in a lot of other gaps. So I get it. I understand. When you had your first fights, you know, what were your feelings going into your first MMA fight?
It's actually kind of funny. And just to kind of rehash what you just said, absolutely. As someone that is just like regularly training, yes. But if someone's actually great at jiu-jitsu, they're training those 10 times a week. Like, they're training nothing, you know. So that's where I kind of see it as why I can't be like a great practitioner. But yeah, my first fight was insane. I did not want to fight. I've never been in a street fight. Did it because I like enjoyed the workout, and they told me, hey, we have this competition. They put me in the cage, and actually in my first amateur video, my very first fight, I turned around when they shut the cage and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And they're like, too late, turn around. So it was the most surreal experience. They always tell you your first fight will let you know if you're made for it or not. And, you know, it was a bloody battle, and they had me standing right hand. I was standing orthodox. I'm a lefty through and through, so I don't know why I was standing that way. But it released something in me that just made me want more. So yeah, it was a really life-changing experience.
It obviously worked out because, I mean, you got in there, did it, and here you are now. You know, you going out there and, you know, first thinking, I don't want to do this, and then continue on, and then now again making it up to this point, you know, that's awesome. So kudos to you on that. And you actually kind of answered one of my other questions in that answer, just wondering, you know, prior to training, had you been in any kind of altercations or fights beforehand?
Nope. Never been in a street fight.
That's like, well, I don't think, like, I don't know, for some reason it blows my mind thinking like, wow, never been in a fight and then became a cage fighter. But then again, I don't know.
No, it's definitely an interesting fact when people bring it up, because I'm like, yeah, I've never fought before in the streets. And they're like, you have like over 20 fights in MMA. I'm like, yeah, I know, but that's way different. There's rules and regulations.
True.
Now you can't even have on fingernails. Streets, they probably use them for a weapon.
Yeah, that is true. Like fish hooks, eye gouging, you know, it's pretty dirty. I haven't been in a street fight in over 20 years, so I don't know. Rules might have changed by now. They, maybe, with guys now training MMA and watching a lot of UFC and everything, it's interesting to see just like, oh, they're throwing leg kicks.
I've seen some videos.
Yeah. So one of the last things I kind of just want to ask, just again, with you being, at the level that you're at and having kind of climbed up as you have, for first time martial artists, whether it be, again, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, MMA overall, do you have any advice for just anyone, not just females, but just in general?
Yeah, no, I go back to there's so many opportunities to be able to be a great fighter. And I was one of the people that, that I had this dream and everybody thought I was crazy. Like I literally was told by my first Muay Thai coach that the dance studio is across the street. And I've been in California now for 10 years and, I'm doing okay. And I didn't start martial arts till I was 20. So for a lot of people that are in the UFC have been doing martial arts their whole life. So it was quite a rushed career getting into it. But, at the same time, I always tell kids, like, there's no doubt in my mind that if you want it, but you have to be able to handle you have to be able to handle hard work. You have to be able to handle a lot of heartbreak, man, injuries, and just keep them focused. And if it's what you really want, you just got to keep grinding. And I go back to focusing on one discipline at a time, maybe not waiting till you get your black belt to start something new, but, getting an understanding and a fundamental of each individual martial arts, the four basic, I would say, just to kind of get you involved in like everything you're going to experience, because it's involved. It's not who's the best martial artist in one discipline. It's who's the best, most rounded martial artist that can, game someone that, they see something and they have to adapt, or, they just have a better style than the other person. So it's a lot different than it used to be. So it's really important that you have all those fundamentals. But yeah, just don't let anybody tell you no from your dreams. Like I get told no all the time. I've got told no so many times that it's almost like insanity that I'm where I'm at, but it is what it is. And I just kept grinding and keeping my head down and, never getting discouraged and staying, completely, I'm always learning. I'm a black belt, and one of my main training partners is a 15-year-old kid that's been training jiu-jitsu longer than me. So just staying humble and always learning. That's a huge, huge thing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And again, with you saying that you've been told no so many times, I'm glad that you stuck with it and, just power through it, because like I said, me personally, I'm a fan. Your fights are always exciting. Thank you for having that style that's so exciting and fun to watch.
Thank you so much.
So
I do it for the fans.
So yeah, and we appreciate that greatly, because like I said, watching the fights, there's never a dull moment. She's here to scrap, and no one's going to tell her any different. So that's awesome. And closing out here again, thank you so much. I know you gotta get out of here and go coach and everything. Yeah. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to get some questions out, and definitely appreciate you as a fighter and just your social media presence as well, because your memes they pop up at the top when I log in, and they crack me up. I end up sharing a lot of them, whether it be in the stories or on my regular feed. So thank you for that as well. So,
you always have great content as well. So
thank you. So I'll go ahead and let you get out of here, but thanks again and good luck moving forward.
Thank you so much and have a good day. I gotta go though.
This go around, I have one of my favorite human beings out there to converse with. Many of you may already know her as Jits Bitch or JB. So with you training jiu-jitsu and martial arts period, actually, because you started way before it was on jiu-jitsu. But with you starting in martial arts, like, you remember how you felt? Remember just the experience, like starting off?
So, I mean, my very first martial arts memory, as far as me participating in martial arts, or my very first martial arts. So, as far as participating, right?
Sure, yeah. It's
Okay.
your answer, whatever you want to give me.
um. Well, I came to. Well, that's it's a bit foggy. We'll talk about martial arts. My Sicilian family were all pugilists. They were like actually boxers. My grandfather's boxing name was Gorgeous George, which was later a guy in Snatch. Um, but so I grew up with that sort of martial art being um, just a normal occurrence, right? Like my papa would like clomp you upside the head and he'd be waving his big old fists around in your face and um, that sort of thing. But going into a martial art later in life, I went into it after, not quite a year after, um, being violently assaulted. And so having very recent, memory and trauma response to, um, I've not really ever gone into too much detail talking to people about this, but my feet were taken out from under me and the back of my head slapped the concrete and it made that like meaty
Mm,
melon sound. And
hmm.
I got the stars in my eyeballs and I don't remember a lot after that, but a guy just kept hitting me in the face. And so there was just a lot of like concussion and the sensation of impact coupled with fear. So going into a striking art immediately after that, um, definitely brought up a lot of shit for me. Um, I started training with one of my best friends who was a sort of broad spectrum Filipino martial arts instructor. And we would just train in the garage all day. And, on the days when I was getting really nervous to even sort of have him in my space or have him making any sort of like impact on me, he would set me up to do, work with the wooden man or work some like doce pares, stick fighting drills where I was smacking myself in the back of the head a lot, um, but not, engaging so much. And so, because there were these other options for me to be empowering my body through martial arts and empowering my mind through martial arts without it involving another human being, and we balanced that out until I got comfortable enough, like putting the pads on and just beating the shit out of each other with sticks. And um, it was I think one of the most difficult, but one of the most important things I've ever done.
Understandable.
So yeah, I mean, my first martial arts experience was just like, oh my God, there was so much anxiety and weird things kept happening to my body, where I would sustain some sort of impact and I'd have to be like, okay, 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 okay. And I would have to go cry and just like let shit out. But being with one person who was already such a good friend, um, and just let me be a fucking freak weirdo. I didn't sign up for a school with my first martial arts experience. I wasn't in a big room full of people trying to process my trauma. It was with, one good friend, and he really, really helped me get through my shit.
Going into your first competition, how are you feeling?
Oh God, I did it wrong. I did it completely wrong. My first competition was about a year, maybe a year after a year and a half after my daughter got really sick. And I've been in and out of the hospital with my daughter. My daughter has something that makes her very sick, and so um I'm living that life where I'm like, all of my adrenaline is going to those crisis situations. My adrenaline doesn't even like go off for other things anymore. Um, so I was exhausted, um, and hadn't really prepared. And, it was really interesting because all the women in my gym had said, "Hey, we're all going to go do this competition." I'd never done competition before. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They're like, "We're all signing up. You should too." And I was like, "Right on. I'll go out there and fucking just roll and see what happens." Right. None of them signed up for it. I was the only one who did. And then I realized I was going to uh, Pans in San Francisco. I didn't know that the um, competition I had signed up for is one of the most competitive competitions. I wasn't just going to like a local high school to roll. I was out there with like Oceander, and you know what I mean? Like there were big names out there on the mat, and I was just like, fuck it, I don't know, I'll go, whatever. So the whole way there, I was in the car with my best friend who has done boxing competitions and other martial arts competitions. She's like, "Are you good? Are you nervous?" And I was like, "I don't even feel anything. I don't feel nervous. I feel nothing." And she's like, "I don't think that's good." I feel like you should at least be a little nervous. Your adrenaline is going to serve you here. And I was like, "I don't feel like anything. I feel like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to roll and I'm going to see what happens. And that's whatever. It's just some unbiased science experiment." She kept saying, "Are you sure? You're not even shaking. There's no sign of like that for you." And so, I mean, yeah, I didn't get nervous. I didn't feel anything. And then I went out there and I took the girl down. I got my takedown. Um, and then both of my arms went completely offline and no longer were available for comment. Um, I couldn't move my arms, so apparently I got like an adrenaline dump. I didn't have a sufficient amount of adrenaline in my body to make my muscles move anymore. That initial one where I was like, "Fuck yeah, this is gonna be great," and then she basically just like went into a point loop around my head. Um, my defense is really good. She couldn't submit me, but she just kept like spinning around my head looking for these entries in this attempt, and I couldn't stop that from happening. But I felt like she was like Sonic the Hedgehog just going around my head. I could hear like the coins like going pring 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 pring, and I was just down there going, "Fuck, dude, I can't move my arms." Yeah. So I mean, but you know, when you come from like a whole history of like scrapping and fighting in the streets and all this other stuff, and then just being like a tired lady, I was like, whatever, this isn't actual danger, so basically I couldn't get it up, really. So I mean, that was my first competition experience, and I just and I think that's why still I look at competition as a very occasional private experience. I'm private about that because it's just a science experiment for myself, right? I
Absolutely.
don't think I'm going to get glory. I just need to know where my weakest points are in my game, and if you want somebody to like circle them repeatedly with like a highlighter, let's go compete. Somebody's all, "This is where you are fucked up. You are a weak bitch right here." And then you can go fix your shit.
Prior to training, fights and altercations. Anything that anything you got involved with where you maybe thought like, "Damn, I wish I knew how to fucking train, or I knew how to fight," or even better, going back and thinking about it after learning how to train, like, things would have been a lot different in this fight if I would have, known how to do this. I mean, you did describe the bar incident as well, so I guess that too.
Well, yeah, right. Like the one like post training where I'm like, "Damn, this shit works." But I think having those experiences as a kid, like fighting that bitch at the river the one day, and like bikinis are going all over the place, like total like full on not giving a fuck ghetto ass cat fight, right? Where you're actually trying to just rip this bitch's bikini like up her asshole, you know, and my knees are like just scraped up from falling in the gravel, and we're just beating the shit out of each other, but it ends and it's over, you know. I went to a continuation high school. That was like, that's that's what we did, you know? And I don't know. I don't ever think back on those like scuffles and those like, they're just like a regular little flare up, you know? We're like and it's over. And then
Sure.
usually that becomes your best friend, which is always weird. Like I made hella of my good friends by fighting them first. Um but I don't ever think back on those and think, boy, I wish I had, you know, known more, or I wish I hadn't lost that one, or because they were nothing, you know, just your little high school cat fights. I also fought dudes. Um, wasn't all just cat fights. I also fought dudes.
All right. Last question, and
Okay.
then I'm gonna let you get out of here. Going into training early on, is there anything you would tell someone coming into martial arts that maybe you wish you had known or had been told in the beginning as well?
Um, I think, you know, I just said this recently on our podcast, and I really feel like this is what I would tell, um and I think I do tell them, the new ladies, is, you know, quit being nice. Quit being
Mhm.
fucking nice. You know, we're in here, we're rolling. Quit worrying about pulling my fucking baby hairs. Um, I don't care that you're just, you know, drove your knee halfway through my crotch while we're doing this. It's just, it's gonna happen until you get better, and then it won't happen anymore. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, you know, I think women who come in tend to be too nice with each other. I mean, there's always the opposite side of that too. Those women who come in and you're like, whoa, same team. But you know, just know that it's okay to like smother somebody with your boobs and put all your weight on them. Knee on belly is a thing that happens. We all hate it, but it happens, you know, north south. It Don't worry
Yeah.
about that shit, you know. Get your nice brain out and just come in and drill the technique without worrying that you're hurting this other person.
Yeah. That's true. For this go around, I have a good friend of mine. You all may know this young lady as Baby Assassin on Instagram, but I
Yo,
call her Michelle. Hey, Michelle, what's up? How you doing?
good, good. How are you?
I'm all right. Just, I'm all right. I have Michelle with me, and we're going to go over some of the questions I've been asking, just kind of get an idea of your experiences and, just thoughts on grappling, fighting, whichever or. So, I guess the first question I'm going to jump into, which is kind of what I've been asking everyone right out the gate, is when you started training martial arts. First off, you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu only?
Yeah, of course. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, I mean, BJJ, I'm all abbreviating like I'm online. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or whatever Jiu-Jitsu, in general. Yeah, I mean, that's basically like probably the first and only mixed martial arts I've ever tried, actually. I was an adult when I tried it. I think it was like, fuck, I lose track of time. Probably like 6 years ago is when I first tried it. Um, but yeah, that was like my first legit martial arts experience. In that sense, to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I used to work at this alarm company. Um, and there was this jiu-jitsu school right across from my job. And I remember I just went there during lunch one day, just walked in, and I saw these people rolling around on the mats, and I just tried it, and it was just history from then.
When you got started, what was your
Yeah.
first feeling going in there?
Well, let me backtrack. So I grew up like around a lot of males in my household, so they would always like, watch boxing, mostly boxing. I wasn't really that much interested in it. I mean, I liked watching the fights. Like, who doesn't like being around that ambience, drinking, eating. I mean, I was very young though at the time. And it didn't really that interest me that much, but I think like MMA is what drew me in, especially I think I was really young, but it was when Misha Tate and Rousey, when they first fought in Strikeforce. When I saw that fight and I saw how they were just like, grappling like a lot, and I was like, what? I'm like, what is that? Like, it's not like boxing. I was like, it's different. Like, that drew me in. And when I was working for the alarm company, I was kind of going through like an existential crisis, an early midlife crisis. And, I was going through a dark time, and I was like, fuck, like, I'm tired of working out. I would like lift, go to the gym. And I was like, God, like, I want to do something else. And like, I started, because I saw Misha Tate and Rousey, and I was like, God, man, like, if they can, do something like that, like, and they're women, I'm like, I can do something like that too. Like, I'm tired of like, just working out. So I would like, actually did research, I was like, especially because I'm small, I'm like, people don't know, but I'm like 4'11" or like 4'10". I'm probably like legal handicap. If I wanted to, I could go to the DMV. But yeah, I'm actually like really short. And so I would like, Google like, I gotta be realistic, I'd be like, what is good for me? I'm like, okay, not boxing, not Muay Thai, like, so what would come up was judo and jiu-jitsu. And I was like, God, like, there weren't really any judo gyms around where I used to work. It was just that jiu-jitsu gym. Like, literally, there was like, it used to be a Gracie Baja or whatever. It had like the sign, the advertisement, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go. And I went, I had blonde hair, freaking a bunch of makeup on, with my little AD t-shirt. That's like the alarm company. And I walked in, and I saw it was like mostly guys rolling, like in all this sweat. And I was like, oh shit, this looks kind of like what Rousey and Tate were doing. I was like, and there was only like one girl at the time. And the guys, like, they were just like, they were concentrating on like surviving, And I was like, it's just like the passion seeing that, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it, And I sat down, talked to them, and whatever. I tried it, and I liked it. I was hooked. Like, it was addicting, when I first tried it, because I was like, fuck, man, I can't sweep, or I would be able to do something, but I couldn't do the other thing. And I was like, I'll get there. Like, it was just so addicting. Like, I kept wanting to come every day. Like, I liked it. It became something like after work, I would just go straight over there. It was like walking distance to my job in Arcadia. So yeah, I mean, it started there. That was where I started, my first legit martial arts experience. And I remember I would wear makeup. Oh God, I was one of those girls that I would wear makeup in the beginning when I would train, honestly. And nobody would tell me anything until this one girl was like, hey, she's like, like, you don't have to wear makeup. You're going to stain people's gis. I was like a white belt. And I was like, like, I didn't think about it. Cause like, how some people that go to the gym and like they do wear makeup, and at the time, I was just like, I just didn't think. So then from then on, I stopped wearing makeup, and I was like, okay. And my blonde hair went away, because that shit dies when you're rolling around. Fucking breaks your hair. Yeah, like I started, I would wear makeup in the beginning. And I remember too, when I first competed as a white belt, I finally knew not to wear makeup. And the person, I still remember, because it was my first fight ever as a white belt. I remember the girl, my opponent, she wore makeup and she stained my gi. So I was like, oh my God, this is how my training partners felt. Because I was like, this, like, it was all on my lapel. And then my trainer was like, like, you see. And I was like, oh my God, she had makeup. And after, like, my first thought was like, oh my God. But I was like, okay, yeah, I used to do that too. But yeah, I remember that.
So going into, since you mentioned your first competition, going into that, like, what were your feelings going into your first competition? Just getting out there.
Oh man, I was nervous. I mean, I was white belt, and I mean, I wanted to compete. I've always had that I've always been competitive, like everywhere, like at work, home, anywhere with my friends. So I feel like it's just like, natural for me that I was competitive, but I was nervous, super nervous, but I was there with my team, which gave me, confidence. I lost that fight, but I do remember that I was proud because I had been drilling takedowns. Like I was scared to start a fight standing. So I remember that I was just focusing on drilling takedowns, like just takedowns, like the single leg, simple one. And I did. I got the takedown and I was like proud of that at least because I was like, oh, fuck, like if you do drill something, it does work. Like, that was like my first epiphany. Like, oh, if you really do drill something, if you do something repetitive, like it does work. And so, yeah, I got the takedown and I was really proud of that. But I lost. But I was like super nervous. And, as I continued to do more fights, like I would always ask my professor or my teammates that, were higher belts than me to be like, so like, is there a timeline? Like when do my nerves go away? Like, let me know so I can start counting down, and they'd be like, no, like they don't go away. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, what do you mean they don't go away? Like, I was so surprised. They're like, no, you just like, you learn how to embrace them. Like you learn how to channel that energy into something else. And I didn't understand for a while what they meant by that. I was like, what? Like, and then I had another professor, Cisco. He has his own gym now. He would tell me too, he's like, no, he's like, if you're not nervous, then you don't care. He's like, you have to be nervous. He's like, because then you don't care if you win or lose. And like that really like changed my mindset. I was like, that's so true. If I wasn't nervous, then I wouldn't care if I win or if I won or lost, and then what's the point of competing? It's not fair to the other person. And why are you competing, And I was like, oh God, he's right. He's right.
So going into martial arts for you, and like, so you did it, you went in as an adult. Prior to any training, did you have like any, like schoolyard fights or any altercations where you look back on it and I was like, man, if I trained then, it would be curtains for them?
Gosh, man, I wish I had a cool story like Ryan Hall with that dude at the pizza parlor, like or like a viral video, but that's just not me. People don't believe me, but I've never been in like an actual street fight. Even in high school, nothing. I remember like a girl that I didn't know even existed had wanted to fight me, but she never like showed up in front of the tree where you're supposed to meet. That was as close to like a street fight, or actually, well, this was after high school. I remember like this was like Halloween, and I was with my best friend, and we were with our boyfriends at the time. And after the Halloween party, the go-to is to go to Jack's, Jack in the Box. We always be like, let's go to Jack's, be like 12 or 1 a.m. So, it was Halloween, so it was 1 a.m. You're bound to bump into people that are also drunk. So we were ordering food, and our boyfriends were in the restroom. And, I was wearing, I think I was like a leopard cat. Yeah, I did it before Craig's Jones, so no, I'm just kidding. I wore leopard before him, okay? Now I'm playing. But I was like a cat. It was like, whatever, a full body suit. We were both in costumes, and these two guys, they were just sitting by us while we were ordering, and they're kind of like snickering, hollering, saying stuff. But we ignored them. We were just like, whatever, just ordering food. We're like, whatever. And so our boyfriends came out while they were doing that. And so then, of course, a fight happened, and they were just, our boyfriends were going at it. And I remember that I was like, oh, like one of them had punched my boyfriend, and it kind of almost knocked him out. And I remember like I just punched the guy. I punched the guy, and I mean, obviously I wasn't thinking. I had no martial arts experience at all. So I'm pretty sure like I loaded up on that punch. Who knows? I don't know. But I remember I punched the guy, and he was surprised. He didn't expect me. He was just expecting the guys to do it. My friend's boyfriend had gone to his trunk to get a crowbar, So it was just my boyfriend and these two guys. So I was like, oh fuck that, like he's gonna take forever to get that crowbar. So I just like bam, went for it. And like, obviously it didn't do anything to the guy, but I think he was just shocked because I remember seeing his face. Like I don't think it hurt him, but he kind of was just shocked to see this little girl, you know, like punch him in the face. And then I remember I was like, leave him alone. And he was just kind of shocked. And then him and his friend just walked away. They walked away, and then we ended up just, you know, going home or whatever. But yeah, that's probably as close to a street fight from me. But I've never been into fights that was probably as close as they got.
It was still a cool story. And I guess the, you know, closing question to, you know, this run of them all, for anyone getting into grappling, anyone starting new, what would you tell them? Or what's some advice that you would give someone that you wish you probably had when you started off?
Well, not to sound cliche, but I guess I would say like, don't get discouraged easily, especially when you're in uncomfortable situations. Just because it's jujitsu, you know, you're in a pretzel with somebody, you're like, you know, you're in close contact with somebody, and yeah, don't get discouraged easily. I feel like just like in life, your job, whatever, when you learn to ride a bike, right? Remember how you first started, right? You didn't know shit, and look where you are now. So I know jujitsu is not conventional like a job or riding a bike, but it's the same. It's almost the same thing when it comes to learning, right? Like, of course, it's uncomfortable. You know, you don't know how to do a certain move, sweep, choke, whatever it may be, armbar, and it'll be a little difficult at first, but it's just much more rewarding when you finally learn that move and you get better and better every day. It's just so rewarding, and just to see your progress, it builds your confidence. And I mean, like, you can't stay comfortable either, you know, like that. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. And also don't be afraid to look dumb, and like ask a question. Oh, ask as many, especially when you're a white belt, ask as many questions as you want. Like, don't feel dumb, because people were in that position too. If you don't ask questions, it's going to hurt you later. Because if you were afraid to look dumb, like, oh, fuck, I'm going to look dumb if I ask this question, it's going to hurt you later on as you train, because you're like, oh, I had that question a long time ago and I'm doing it wrong now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just better to just go for it, ask. Don't be afraid. You're learning. We've all been in that position. We're there to help you. And yeah, I you know, we all have to start somewhere, and just being patient with yourself. Be patient. It teaches you patience. It taught me patience. Shit, everybody that knows me knows I'm the most impatient person ever, and this taught me how to be patient.
That's true. I agree. Ask those questions.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you know you brought that point up.
Yeah. I know I was a little bit afraid to ask questions. I would just wait. I would hope somebody else would ask the same question I would be asking. I'm like, yes, I was gonna ask that too. You know. But as I got, you know, when I was a blue belt, that's when I started asking more questions, or purple belt too. But I wish I would have asked way more questions like when I was a white belt. So that's like, you know, my advice too is like, don't be afraid to look dumb or think your question's dumb. Because the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you to become better and learn. So, you know, putting yourself in, you know, uncomfortable situations and not being afraid to ask questions is going to really help your game and evolve. And yeah, don't be afraid to get out of that comfort zone.
Well, I think we're all set there. Got kind of some of the answers that I was looking for in those questions. And with you, I don't know if this is the case, I'll edit it out, but we were talking before, you say you're going to be competing upcoming. Is that public?
Yeah, so I did sign up for, I believe it's February 21st. I know it's in February. I just don't know what February. Oh, is it the 21st, your birthday? Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah. I'm going to write this down. Damn, now I got to win. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, like, especially it's been hard for so many people to not just train, but to get fights during this pandemic. I live in California, so I know IBJJF isn't coming back for a while. I don't know when, especially now that they legalized reaping and heel hooks. I'm like, fuck, I really want to compete, but I don't know if they're ever going to get into California. Right now at work, I can't really get too many days off to travel. So when I heard that there was one in Huntington Beach with subs on the shore, submission on the shore, I was excited. 115-pound tournament. I think it's a $500 cash prize winner. And of course, subs on the shore, reaping is allowed, heel hooks are allowed. And I was like, fuck yeah, what better way to start the year than to do this big tourney? So, I'm excited for that. Really excited to go hunt for the kill.
Good. Excited for you. And that's available again to watch.
Yeah, people will be able to live stream it. There hasn't been much details right now yet, but yeah, it's February 21st, Huntington Beach. Unfortunately, there's no spectators, and you'll be able to live stream it like last time.
Okay, all right. As more information comes out, I'll definitely share it and try to make sure it's people are out there paying attention. I'm gonna myself be watching as well. Actually, Arte Suave Elite. I believe they're gonna have an event on the 20th, so the day before. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you again, Michelle, so much for doing this. In the notes, I'll make sure to tag you and put your info out there and remind people, hey, my girl's competing on my birthday, so y'all better watch.
Appreciate you, Dante.
No problem. Appreciate you as well, and everything that you've done. You've been a great help, and even with this, like you've given me some ideas, and like you're a tremendous help. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Hey everybody, it's Dante with Off the Mats Podcast. This go round, I have with me a friend who actually came up with the name for the podcast when I put this up in the stories. And she dropped, I think, 2 or 3 different names, and 2 of her name suggestions made it to the semi. They might have both been in the finals. So all the way from Germany, Off the Mats Podcast, I would like to welcome Leah. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good. So as we've discussed before, I just got a few questions here, just really to ask you about your experience in martial arts and just kind of, go through and see it from your eyes, essentially. So starting out, when you first started training, I guess first, how long have you been training?
For nearly 3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
I started early in 2018 with BJJ. I never did sport before.
Gotcha. And when you got started with BJJ, what was your first experience? Like, how did that feel when you first got out there?
Oh, my first try class was a really bad experience because I visited a gym with only 3 guys training and a male coach, and I really felt that they don't want to train with a girl. So the atmosphere wasn't really welcoming, and this was my first moment in jiu-jitsu, and I was really insecure. And after the first class, I was thinking about not doing jiu-jitsu at all. Good thing I joined another gym and made great training partners. But yes, the first experience was just not that cool.
Sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad though that you found a good school to train at and you continued on with it. But yeah, I've encountered people who refuse to roll with the female, which I find bizarre.
Actually, it was the coach. I was watching two guys sparring, and then he was he talked to me, and then I say to him, I'm thinking about signing a membership, and I will think about it. And he just replied, yeah, you should think about it, in a tone which was like, okay, don't do it. After that, I never felt sad after training in the other gym, but after this try class, I was really sad. I felt like I'm not for jiu-jitsu. I'm the wrong person. Yes, I made the experience in the other gym, so there are so many great people, and I really felt welcome there. Like, they were all friendly to me. They drilled with me. They rolled with me at the first day.
That's good, and that's how it should be. Getting into the sport, I think you should. That's not just jiu-jitsu, but just anything. I think at a new school, whether it's in elementary school, high school, or meeting new people at any hobby. Whether it's crocheting or knitting or comic book collecting. When someone new comes aboard, welcome them. Don't discourage them.
Just jump into it.
Yep.
Yeah, just do it.
With your training over the years, have you competed?
Yes, like 8 times. Because of the coronavirus, I didn't get to compete a lot last year, but usually I really like to compete.
When you first went out to compete, what was that like for you?
I was really nervous. It was just a small in-house tournament with a small gym, but and at the end I just got to fight with or against my best training partner and friend. So it was not that of a big deal at the end, because she won, I got silver. But this is also an issue of being a female grappler, because you don't get opponents, so you just fight your teammates. But you always get a prize.
And then outside of the in-house tournament, any bigger tournaments? Like, have you done any IBJJF tournaments over there, or?
I think not IBJJF, but some tournaments with their rule sets. Yeah. So some bigger competitions as well.
Okay. And how was that for you? How'd you feel going into those events?
I feel great because I like competing, but I'm also really nervous, and that's because that's also, I'm not a good competitor at all. So it's because I get too nervous before my fights. But I like the preparation. I like the shark tanks before, and that's the stuff I enjoy. And because that's the stuff because I signed up to competitions.
Okay, cool. And prior to training martial arts, had you ever been in any kind of altercation or any fights prior?
No, not really. I started working as a bouncer at the same time as I started jiu-jitsu. But yes, I don't get into fights a lot.
I'm always try to find out, I always want to know what people's prior experiences were, if people came into jiu-jitsu or martial arts period with any kind of a history of, haven't been in a fight before, or if people are just, I'm curious, I want to test myself, let me jump in. So that's why I always ask that question.
And I just jumped in.
And actually, since having started training, I don't know what your temperament is like versus mine. I was a hothead over the years, but since training for myself, I've become a lot calmer. Like, have you found that to be something with jiu-jitsu that's worked for you? Has it like basically shifted how you feel and think about things?
Yes, I would say before I couldn't stay cool in situations, but instead of like being aggressive, I was more like anxious. So now I can stay cool in difficult situations.
So, last question, just for you. Do you have any advice for first-time grapplers starting up, and anything that you wish that you were told when you first started?
Just don't be afraid. I think this is just a simple thing. Don't be afraid. All people are there to have fun. And on the mat, there are so many friendly people. Like, yes, you can have bad experience, but most grapplers want new training partners and they love the sport. So they love all people who join the sport. Yeah, I think that's an advice I will give. Just give it a try, do it, have fun.
Leah,
Nice.
thank you very much for doing this, coming on. I really do appreciate it. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you get out of here and get some rest. I know it's late over there for you. So
thank you, and I'm still waiting for the t-shirt.
welcome back, everybody. It's Dante with another installment of our Q&A. I actually don't have a name for this Q&A, so I've just been sitting and talking with fellow grapplers, female grapplers specifically. We're welcoming back our good friend BJJ Mama. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we've actually, in our 2 episodes, you've probably actually answered these questions. Honestly, I probably could have just gone back and spliced out your answers from there. You would have been like, wait, I never recorded these. Like, how are you putting me on this episode again without ever talking to me?
I'm a mom. I probably would have been like, yeah, maybe we had that conversation. I don't remember.
True. My wife does that a lot. I take advantage of mom brain all the time.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
I order action figures and she's like, oh, you got that one? When'd you get that? Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had this for like 3 years. It just came out last week. But yeah, I had that for 3 years. Oh, okay. Cool. Like, yeah, cool. Like, sheesh. Like, lady, like, get a brain scan. So anyhow, the questions that I'm going to ask you, it's just more so about your experiences with jiu-jitsu, more so early on, just in your training. And like I said, we've kind of gone over this before, but for those who may have forgotten, or you might want to add more to it, or shift up how you may have said something before, like like maybe I shouldn't have said it that way, maybe I want to go this way. I don't know. But my first question, when it comes to your experiences with martial arts, what was your first memory? What was day one like for you?
Oh my gosh. Day one, I totally tried jujitsu on a whim because I was dating my husband at the time. He was my boyfriend, whatever, we were dating. And he had all these people he had been talking about. And I was like, well, I'm going to try it. And I'm pretty sure that the first time he was like, I don't know if you'll like it, but you're welcome to come and try it. So I came and I tried it. Also, I mostly just wanted to mark my territory, in the gym, be like, hey everybody, I'm his girl. So my first experience with it was just like, I had no idea what I was doing. Popped into the gym, like I said, to mark my territory and see what all was going on and try it. I really liked it though. Like everyone was really nice. I know I hear a lot of horror stories, especially as a female grappler. You hear about all sorts of attitudes or just different type of men and women in the jiu-jitsu world. I got really lucky in my first experience. Like everyone was super nice. I think I told you this in one of our other podcasts. I did something. I don't even remember what I did now, obviously. And the person was like, "Oh, you have good energy." And I like, for whatever reason, that stuck with me. And I decided then and there, like, well, jujitsu is my new thing. So
That's all it takes is that one compliment. And it's like, well, this is it. I'm sticking with this.
The funny thing is that was legit like 7 years ago. I did not start jujitsu as like a 16-year-old or like as a kid or anything at all. I like tried this as a adult that just was like, well, I'm going to try this thing to show off for this dude. But I mean, I guess it worked because we're married now and we do a lot of jujitsu.
I wonder how weird it would be in my home if my wife trained and I didn't. I don't know what that would be like for me.
I don't know. I try to think even to the women that I've encountered. And I mean, there's been a few where I guess, but their husbands maybe like had dabbled in other martial arts or whatever. I think there's just so many different females, I feel like, when it comes to like female grapplers. There's, a lot of females that are like doing it with their spouse, or maybe they've gone through like a traumatic experience, so now they're doing it, or they're just wanting to like build more confidence. Like there's a lot of different reasons that females get into grappling, I feel like. So you have like a whole lot of different females in the art.
How far into your training did you start competing?
Yeah. I started like 6 months in. I maybe somewhere between 6 months to a year. The funny thing was, though, it was a small. I think it was Naga actually, and they had a nogi option. Dude, I had never trained in nogi. The only thing I knew about it was I assumed you didn't wear a gi when you did it, and so I did it. And I had no idea what I was doing. And the funny thing is, I actually wouldn't say that that was the tournament that made me decide I really wanted to compete, because I had a little bit of a, I don't want to say hiatus from jiu-jitsu, but I got pregnant like along my journey of training. So it wasn't until after I had my daughter that when I started competing, I really, really like fell in love with it. Like I had done a few IBJJF tournaments before I got pregnant. So that first tournament was only 6 months in. I totally bombed. It was hilarious to go back and watch it now, because I just look like, I don't know, a baby giraffe who doesn't know what to do. And then after I had my daughter was when I really like started competing and really started getting into it and like falling in love with it and being, I guess you would say, a lot more competitive in the sport.
Fair. When you went in for your first competition, you kind of, I guess, maybe answered it a little bit, maybe, but how did you feel? Just like as soon as you heard your name called and you stepped onto that mat?
I was so scared. Like, I'm trying to remember. Oh, okay. Funny story. I felt totally a fish out of water. One of my first matches, the girl totally tried to like play mind games, I guess, whatever. She was like, "Oh, I like your gi," but she said it quietly so the like ref couldn't hear or whatever. And I was like totally dumb. I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then she totally threw my ass in the air and like got all the points and slaughtered me. But I was like, that's how like deer in headlights I was that first tournament.
Prior to training, had you ever been in any kind of a altercation or fight or anything? Like coming in was like just this type of activity just completely foreign to you, or had you had siblings and got into a scrap or two, or or in schoolyard fight or anything?
Right? Like, hold my earrings, hang on. I had like one time in, I feel like high school, a fight over a boy. I then got my ass handed to me. Had no idea what I was doing. That's probably my only altercation. So yeah, I mean, going into it, it was totally foreign. Like, also just being that close to someone you don't know. Like, wait a minute, what? This dude's about to climb on top of me? What's happening? Like, a lot of just not being aware of what was going to be happening, um, was all totally foreign and new to me. I mean, luckily, like I said, my first experience, like everyone was really great. Everyone was really nice and open and kind and like, oh, she's new. Let's like help her out. But yeah, it's definitely my first time ever being in any sort of like fight sport, like, I don't know, sort of thing.
The last question here,
Yeah.
we'll end on this note here. So, with you having been in the sport for a few years now and having competed and everything, for anyone new that's coming in, what advice would you give them, or what's something that you wish you would have been told early on that you weren't, and you'd like to share that down to someone else?
I think if we are talking specifically females, I will share like a few little nuggets that I wish someone would have told me. I think the biggest one is just being confident, not necessarily in your sport, like your skill, but just being confident and being present, and taking up space. I mean, I know like that's a whole big thing. Like, you need to be confident and take up space as a female and like be strong and all that stuff. But like, it's the same, and even more so, I feel like in jujitsu, because you're essentially walking into this place where you are one of more than likely very few females. And you've got this uniform and like the tight no gi stuff underneath. And does the gi fit right? Is it big? How do I tie my belt? Like, just all these little things that could end up like hindering your overall experience. But if you just kind of like chill out, be present in the moment, don't worry about like the gi, how it fits or anything, and just like realize that you're here to grow and learn something more, I think that will like jumpstart you a little bit as a new person coming in, to like not be stressed about all that stuff. Even now, I mean, I'm like 7 years into this, right? And I feel like there's little things now that I'm only just now coming to terms with as a female grappler, since we were specifically talking about females grappling, that I really wish I would have like focused on and knew earlier. Like, I know it sounds silly, but even down to like just being comfortable when I put my no-gi stuff on. Like, this is not a fashion show. Like, I'm trying to train. It doesn't matter what your hair looks like or any of those things. Like, just a lot of the things that I think women carry around with us all the time that we're like concerned about. But in jiu-jitsu, none of that matters at all, which I will actually say I think is part of why I love this sport so much, because like none of that matters. It does not matter like what size you are. It doesn't matter what your hair looks like. You can't wear makeup, because if you do wear makeup and it gets on my gi, I'm going to be pissed, right? So like, it's not any kind of competition other than like your skill.
Well, I can't wait for you to hear Michelle's episode.
Oh no.
The whole makeup thing.
No, I know that's a hot topic though. I know that's a hot topic for a lot of females. I'm in a lot of the grappling groups, and I will say this, because I feel like now I need to say it. I don't care if you wear makeup. Like, let's train. I am not a makeup wearer, mostly because I don't know how to do makeup even pre-jujitsu ever. Like, I'm not a makeup person, so I have no skin in the game on that. Anyone listening?
Thank you again, as usual, for always being come on and record with me. I do appreciate your answers, and we do got to sit down and do this again sometime soon, because clearly we have a lot to talk about that people don't even know. All right, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the podcast. Had a great time talking with all of the guests. I hope you all enjoyed it. I know there was a little bit of audio distortion throughout at certain points, so I do apologize for that. We're working on it, so when I do this again with another run of guests, we shouldn't have that same issue. If you want to get a hold of me, feel free. Got any questions, concerns, feel free to reach out to me at bjj.wiki on Instagram, and also at Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram as well. Make sure you check out my friend Zach over there at Student of BJJ on Instagram, and also check out the website too, studentofbjj.com. And don't forget new podcast alerts. It's been around for a little bit of time, but our friends over there at the Deep Half, that's featuring Danny Patrick, BJJ, Jits Bitch, and my BJJ is okay. So make sure you're listening to them if you haven't already started. Thanks again, everybody. You all have a great week.
They with it. Now let me sing a song.